So much data lives in the cloud, right? How are firms ensuring that they're managing and governing this data properly and responsibly? And how are organizations ensuring controlled access and trust in data in the cloud? Now, to kick off the first segment of our second half, and this is going to be a tough one because there's been a lot of great sessions, so tough act to follow. I'd like to introduce my colleague for many years, Peter Koo, Vice President and Chief Industry Strategist for Financial Services and Informatica. Peter's going to lead our next panel in a discussion about modern data governance in the cloud. So Peter, welcome, and turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. I guess it's still morning. It's not anymore. I'm on the West Coast here, so good afternoon, everyone. Really pleased to be a part of this year's DataVision conference. As John mentioned, we go back many years, but Informatica's support for the council goes back about a decade now. What I wanted to do was to talk about some of the trends and challenges with regard to data management and data governance, and what the adoption of cloud technologies across financial services is either doing to either help or provide pitfalls and challenges that we have to overcome. When we think about cloud, at the end of the day, there are a lot of conversations. In fact, as you see on the upper right-hand corner, CDMC, this is the Cloud Data Management Capability Working Group that the EDM Council is hosting and sponsoring, and many of us here today are members and participants of the working group. And the reason being is that, as you see here, it seems like everyone's adopting cloud. We hear about it all the time. We see the headlines. Some in the past have said that it's experimental, and it's not. It's mainstream. It's hard to find an organization that does not have a cloud first or a cloud native strategy in place these days. And when we see and hear what the financial services industry is doing with cloud technologies, it really differs in terms of what they mean by cloud, what they're adopting it for, and what they're actually adopting. And so when we think about the cloud adoption models, there are several that many of you are familiar with. And for those of you that are not, just quickly going through, there are what we call infrastructure as a service. Organizations like Microsoft, AWS, others out there, including Google and Snowflake, provide solutions that allow organizations to run their infrastructure investments up in the cloud. You have organizations that provide capabilities as a platform as a service. These include some of the application vendors that have traditionally sold technology to run on-premise, including, by the way, Informatica, as we have a platform as a service for the things that we provide for our customers across the globe. And then I think this is where most companies have really understood cloud, were the vendors that provided software as a service solutions, companies that basically require just a browser and a device. And we see more and more of the investments in the cloud, and it's not necessarily a small portion of organizations' budgets. This is a recent article that was actually produced talking about the amount of money that's actually being spent last year going into the next 5 years. More and more organizations, especially across financial services and in healthcare and other sectors, cloud is becoming forefront. And the reason being is that there is a lot more innovation that's happening in the cloud domain versus, let's say, companies, again, that have sold technologies that have traditionally run on-premise. With that said, on-premise is not going away. In fact, I was just listening to CNBC this morning, the CEO of HP Enterprise talking about, for example, the hybrid world that we all will continue to live in for many years to come. Why organizations are investing in cloud? I mean, there are obvious ones out there. I called out the one with regard to innovation. There's also the ability to scale with your needs in terms of being able to be more agile and consuming computing technology and power when you need it most. It also, of course, eliminates the need for organizations to have to invest in your infrastructure and people and processes. Again, I think about it as on-demand solutions. Now, what this visual is showing you here is that as organizations are investing in infrastructure, platforms, applications or software in the cloud, there are a number of data management and data governance challenges and or requirements that organizations must keep an eye on. I heard earlier the folks from the first session talking about how important data integration is. You think about just the traditional means of getting access to data. Well, it was hard enough to do it when you had the systems and applications on premise. It doesn't become any easier as you're pushing things out into the cloud ecosystem. Data quality challenges will continue to persist. Security. I've heard many organizations being concerned about cloud and data privacy and security. I know that many of those concerns have been addressed over the recent years, but there's still some looming concerns as to what data are organizations actually putting into the cloud, what are they doing with it, and then bringing that back in. Data lineage and transparency. If you found that it was hard to identify what data you have, what's happening to it from the time of creation to consumption, again, it doesn't get easier as you invest more in the cloud infrastructure. And then finally, data governance. I love the term earlier from the speaker from BC, from the Blue Cross Blue Shield organization. Data governance is not a project, it's a program. And we need to programatize how we govern data as more and more of your organizations are investing in the cloud. Now, why are we bringing this up today? I think at the end of the day, a lot of the traditional questions around your data, is it available where you need it? Can you trust it? Can you explain where it comes from? Are you using the right data for your business needs? And at the end of the day, we talk about privacy again, but more and more organizations not only are just concerned, they have to comply. Is that sensitive data that you're dealing with protected? Do you know where it is? And these are the areas that Informatica has been investing in. Informatica has solutions to help organizations build and manage cloud data lakes, cloud application integration, master data management for legal entities, for products, for reference data, as well as a suite of solutions that allow you to catalog all that metadata, being able to manage quality, leveraging AI. And of course, data stewardship and governance for us really goes above and beyond just, again, workflows and processes. This is really about helping humans not only consume, but comprehend and understand where all that data lives and what they need to do with it. So joining me today, and I'd love to introduce my two panelists. I've got Aravind Jag, I call him Jag, the Chief Data Officer from Freddie Mac, and Ali Bage from Refinitiv. Gentlemen?
Great to be here, Peter. Thank you.
Great. So I know we've talked a lot about cloud as we were preparing there you go. All right. So we've talked a lot about cloud here and every week during the working group calls, there's a lot of discussions going on. So we put some questions together. And I guess the first question for you, Jag, is, cloud, a lot going on in the industry. I'm sure a lot of it's going on at Freddie Mac. Where does cloud sit within your organization?
Yeah, appreciate it, Peter. And, just piggybacking off of, hearing all the panelists, lots of change. So cloud started, I assume, like many of us, a few years ago as a, infrastructure play, looking at your slide, and, resiliency play. How do we reduce costs out of the system, lift and shift, get out of the physical data centers? But it's quickly moved in that, if I look in the data space and business capabilities, tied to that governance, tied to trust your source and empower business, as to now what do we need to do as we get into 2021. Looking at the past year, you've seen such a rapid increase in need for advanced insights, machine learning, artificial intelligence, getting data to be in one place. And looking at that governance piece, because you're going from a legacy environment, right, with tools and as such, where now you can embed your policies and standards into your infrastructure, right, with new tools, and looking at data quality in a more efficient and easier manner, right? Indexes, now that with all, as technology is rapidly increasing, capabilities that you may not have thought about were going to be as easy to implement are there now. So I find it very exciting, at the same time challenging and a little scary, because how are you going to balance all this? Is is where where we're standing at this point.
Ollie, we've spoke a little bit in the cloud discussions, both in your previous organization as well as your current. If you could share with the audience, where does cloud sit at Refinitiv, and what's driving those investments today?
Yeah, so cloud's a key part of our strategy. Refinitiv provides a lot of data and analytics services to the financial services industry. And we're partnered with the cloud providers to make sure that that content can be made available in the places that our clients want to consume it. One of the big attractive aspects of cloud is that we can put the content on a cloud platform where we can continue to manage it on our clients' behalf, so that they can actually just focus on the analytics or the workflow application sitting on top of that, but not have to worry about managing petabytes of tick history or tons of reference data. And the cloud platforms are highly innovative spaces where we're seeing a lot of the new innovation happening on cloud platforms first. So if you want to do machine learning or artificial intelligence, it's much easier to spin up a sandbox environment on a cloud platform and then take advantage of your own data mixed with high quality reference data to get some kind of trusted result out of that than it is to import all the data you might need, go and experiment with it on-prem, and then have this big maintenance headache. So we see that as our key partnership for the future, and that's part of the reason why we have been so keen on collaborating with industry participants in the CDMC group. It really makes sense for us to have automated control capabilities on cloud platforms for data, so that people can trust that the environment on cloud will be at least equal to the level of control they have on-prem, and in some cases much better. So, you know, we can have things like automated data cataloging. We can have a comprehensive view of the classification of all the data in the platform, not just your critical data, but you can see all the data assets because you're being billed by the CPU second and for every gig that you use. So we can tap into that usage data that's for the cloud service billing side in our data governance workflows as well.
Well, it's interesting because I had a call yesterday with one of our customers, and they were explaining to us how they're migrating a lot of the traditional data warehouses that they built with Informatica many years ago and moving it into the cloud. And I asked them, so what cloud environment are you considering? And it wasn't just one, right? It wasn't just one. And we know there's a number of hyperscalers out there that provide similar services, but at the same time, you know, organizations have to deal with not just a multi-cloud environment, but also their legacy environments. I guess when you think about the cloud adoption strategies that companies have in place, what are the big data management? Let's separate governance from data management for a moment. What are the big data management challenges that a CDO or a CIO needs to address as they continue to invest in multi-cloud solutions?
No, Peter, I think in terms of some of the challenges, what we've heard, not only today, but you and I have discussed, is that you got your end state, but you're going to need to manage your transitional state and production because business is not stopping. So what are the trade-offs that you're going to need to do? And also when you're going to management and saying, this is not going to be just set up using Amazon and S3 bucket and I'm done. This is going to be multi-year, call it, millions, right? And a commitment from a management perspective and a CDO that you're not just going to be halfway done. I'm not going to create an environment where it's just, I stop. And so I look at that trade-off conversation as well as that commitment. And also I go back to, a point that Ollie was making when you think about leveraging, say, for artificial intelligence or machine learning, setting up a sandbox. What's the business capabilities that you want to do? Because I think with this multi-cloud, we get sometimes caught up with the shiny new ball. And technology is changing so rapidly. So what we're thinking about today is different 6 months from now. What is the capabilities that you're really trying to prioritize and strive and having to implement? Yeah. I think those are the main challenges that at least I'm seeing at Freddie and talking to various colleagues. It seems to be an industry challenge across the board.
Yeah, I'm seeing that same trend. So particularly, you know, in the past, I've been, you know, helping with data strategy at large organization. Now I'm working with a large number of clients who are all on a cloud journey. We're seeing the redeployment of technical resources, certainly within financial services firms, away from the infrastructure where we can trust cloud partners to deliver a lot of that engineering now. And that means you can move that talent further up the stack. And, you know, we're working together at the moment in the CDMC group to put a control layer in the middle that will work for everybody so that we can move even higher up the stack and just focus on value delivery and application development at the top end, whether you're working on analytics stacks or workflow applications, that having extra resources to focus on that and making it just purely an operational expense for the lower level is one of the big advantages that I think people are going for.
What's interesting to that point, because again, architecturally and for the technical folks out there, I think they probably have a better grasp in terms of what the innovations are that are available in the cloud domain. The business partners that many of those roles support may think of cloud as being it's easier, it's simpler, it's cheaper, it's faster. How do you set the right expectations with the business partners that look toward IT to make the right recommendations, but to understand that it's not the shiny new toy that's going to solve everyone's problems out of the gate?
No, I don't know if you want to go first.
Yeah, it's you got to focus on the reasons you're doing your migration, right? Because it is a migration. Migrations cost money. It's not a question unless you're in the very pleasant position of setting up a brand new company. But you know, barely anybody's got that pleasure. It's mostly about picking your spots, figuring out what are the key advantages you're going to get out of a cloud migration. So are you going to focus on analytics first, as that's an area where there are key capabilities available on cloud platforms which you can't get easily on-prem? If so, what data assets do you need to migrate to the cloud? How sensitive are they? What kind of control framework do you need to manage that data as it gets migrated? And how will you make sure that you're getting the right balance between the upfront cost of migration versus the incremental business value delivery you get moving? Refinitiv, we've seen that. We've been on a cloud journey for a number of years now, and we have our core strategic Refinitiv data platform hosted on a number of cloud providers, able to pass data through to any of our clients where they want to use it effectively.
Yeah. Jay, you had a comment there?
Yeah, just to piggyback, I know we've got a few minutes. Being practical, I think, is key. How do you want to chunk up the body of work? And I know we've talked about data as a program or data literacy, et cetera. I think moving data and call it a product. Product owner moving to the agile mindset as we think about the data transformation on the cloud, embedding that embedding it in our delivery cycle. So when you think about a customer feedback, again, the prioritization, it's tied to, again, being very clear, why are you doing this? Because with that limited budget, limited time, you're then making sure you're adding value in increments that folks can see. Because otherwise you start losing, I think, that commitment from senior management.
And what's interesting is there's good investment being made. I use the word good very carefully here, because again, people look at, oh, well, we need to have a better analytic platform. The cloud options are more innovative. They have better bells and whistles per se. But foundationally, we still see organizations struggling with the fundamentals in terms of data quality management, reference data, data governance, et cetera. What would you say to those budget approvers that, hey, those shiny new things might be good to have, but we still have to address the foundational gaps? Is that a critical thing to consider? What would that conversation sound like if you were having that with them?
So, Peter, I would look at, as a CDO, the foundational block of managing content, what they call quality, governance, lineage, is tied at the beginning. Yeah. It's not an afterthought, because as you think about privacy, as you think about future needs, if you can't ensure that the data is protected, knowing where to go and having the right controls, you will lose all the other business capabilities you think you're doing. And what has been very helpful, I would say, is no one's pushed back on that side. They're asking, in fact, hey, have you thought about it? And they're very pleased that it's really embedded in the life cycle in the beginning. It's not coming at the end. And that's where I think we're hearing from different panelists about whether you call it governance or literacy. It is really it's tied to the hip, and it can't be something you're going to come back to, because any breach, again, credibility is lost.
Got it. Yeah, we could probably go on for another 20 minutes here, and I know want to be respectful of time. Jag, Ali, thank you very much again. Mike, any last comments before we
have a quick Peter question coming in from Ron on the audience, and Jag, either you or Ali, one of you can jump in on this one, or maybe both. And it's sort of a really key question, especially for regulated entities, which is how can you manage data security and privacy risk with having customer bank data on the cloud? In other words, is that happening, and or should we feel good, or what do we need to do to put in the right controls?
You have to have an integrated set of controls there, and we've been working together as an industry to define what best practice that we have for our on-prem data and make sure that that is always on for all of the cloud data. So you need to know what data you've got on the cloud, how sensitive it is, and if it is sensitive, that it's encrypted all the time, and that you understand who's got entitlements to access it and what they're doing with it and how often they're accessing it. That is critically important. And in partnership with cloud platform providers and also technology platform providers like Informatica, we've been able to really closely specify all of those controls that you would expect for financial services regulation or privacy regulation, and transcribe them into the 10 things that you need to remember to do when you're on cloud, and have those be automated controls, not manual processes that give you some level of assurance. But it is critical.
Jag, anything to add to that?
Ali said it perfectly. I think the automation component is the key.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Great panel. Back to you and John.
Thanks, guys.
And Peter, Jag, and Ali, again, thank you for your insights into this. My comment is going to be, I'm biased because I'm involved in this activity that you're all involved in. And if we want to address all of these challenges in cloud, let's all put our heads together and come up with a proven best practice framework so we all benefit as an industry. And that's what all of you are participating in. Very excited about that activity. And I think it's going to be a great addition to the industry with all of your expertise and help. So thank you, guys.